Hey, Thriving in Tandem family. So episode 254 coming up here. And it's interesting, like a lot of these episodes, even though we didn't have a guest today, but so I have my outline of what we want to talk about. But somehow, some way, things surprise me. So for me, one of the surprises of the topic that we covered on when it comes to the topic of being intentional to live a better life now was about wealth building. We actually shared a little bit about our past, our journey in building wealth. And it's probably not what a lot of people think, what it took to really build wealth. And so we just get to share a little bit about that and how intentional and how like anybody could do it. Really, I really do believe that. So that was my little takeaway or surprise from this week's episode. So for you, honey, what was it? It doesn't have to be a surprise, but what stood out from our conversation today?
The takeaway from today is, you know what? It got me thinking. And it's not anything new, but baby steps. You just keep taking one more baby step, and all of a sudden, you know what? They just keep multiplying and adding up. And look at us here, living on the lake.
Yeah.
That was a part of our dream. Who would have thought? Like, when you vision, you think it's going to happen, but you don't know when. And then here we are.
Yeah. So it's whether it's wealth building, dream vacation, dream place to live, or also just connecting as husband and wife. What does it really take to really build a better life and enjoy life now? And it all comes down to one word. And so stay tuned and take a listen. Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Okay, we are live, and my wife is going to join us here in a second. Oh, she's picking up the dog. So
I got to have my puppy, you guys.
Hey, Thriving in Tandem family. Welcome back to this week's episode.
Hi, guys.
And we got a great one. So we're going to talk about the one word that will just make all the difference in the world to your life and business. Now, how is that for a promise? Whenever we talk about this topic of work-life balance, living life now, just building a business so you can create more freedom and enjoying life, really connecting as husband and wife, all those things that I think most married entrepreneurs want, but are having a hard time achieve, is a lot of it because you need a little bit more intention behind achieving those things. Well, like the focus on achievement is usually around the business, building the business, not so much about, enjoying life now, to take the vacations, doing the date nights, connecting every day as husband and wife, building wealth. There's so many things that I think a lot of people want to do, but there's just a big lack of intention, because every time we bring this up, or every time even we talk to other married business owners, whether it be especially like on our podcast, right? These are couples that we felt have done a lot of this, have built a great business, also built a great life, are very well connected as husband and wife. The common theme through all of that is based on one word. Is how do they do that? It's based on one word. It's
magic wand.
It's intention. It's got to be very intentional about those things, because a lot of times as business owners, we use a milestone of a healthier business, more profitable business. Maybe it's a revenue mark that you're going after, or a profit mark that you're going after, but we're using some type of metric, or at least in our head. It may not be a firm number, but some milestone that we're trying to achieve in our business. And then if we do that, then everything in our life will be better, right? I think that's the kind of the inference that a lot of us entrepreneurs have.
And I think we really can't keep track of all that in our mind. It's like doing a math problem in your mind. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I can figure that out in my mind. But if it's a long one, you got to write it down and be intentional about it, not just having something loose in my mind that I kind of think it is.
Yeah. So definitely, not just because the business hits $1 million in revenue, $5 million, $10 million, whatever, and it has a net bottom line of 10%, 20% or whatever, that's great, but it's not necessarily going to give you a better life. I mean, we've heard testimony after testimony. You've seen it either in the news or even sometimes on our podcast, people talking about, even when the business was doing great, we were doing crappy, right? And they say money doesn't buy happiness, yet that's our go-to strategy to get happiness is more money.
Yeah, I think that's a myth. You know what I mean? Like money is going to cure all.
Yeah, and clearly it doesn't. In fact, a lot of times money can really do a lot of damage, not help, but actually hurt more. And a lot of it is because our drive to perform, our drive to succeed, our drive to achieve the $1 million, the 5, the 10, whatever milestone you're trying to reach. So much focus is on that we take our focus off of the things that matter most and the relationships that matter most. Our marriage, our spouse, our kids, all the key relationships around us. And because it takes so long, usually you don't hit, like say $10 million in revenue. Like when you're starting out, it's going to take a long time, typically, right? Unless you just hit lightning in a bottle. But typically that's a long time and process. Even $1 million in revenue for the average business, I think 90% of businesses in the US don't hit $1 million revenue in a year. So, which means for many businesses, majority of businesses, trying to hit $1 million in revenue is not only just going to take a long time, but may never be reached. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a healthy business and live a good life. But we're using this metric and this certain milestone that we think is going to make us happier. And yet for the majority of business, just statistically, you're not even going to reach that. And so, and a lot of our clients actually, I think the majority of our clients are actually doing under $1 million in revenue, and they're living a great life. Mm-hmm. And they're definitely not hurting financially. They're doing very well financially, actually. And so, you gotta say, let's forget that milestone, that metric. Let's forget about, our drive to succeed and kind of put in our head, if we hit this certain mark, we'll be happier. But let's start now at living a better life. Let's start now, even as we're building this business. What can we do today to start living a better life?
Yeah. Like, what can you do to live your best life, regardless of how much money you have?
Yeah. So let's just start. Honey, just start talking about it. Because if we look back at our own lives, every area of growth, whether it was, when I was in my corporate career or building our portfolio, launching the business and staying connected as husband and wife, there's certainly been some peaks and valleys throughout the years, but definitely whenever we were very intentional about improving in any of those areas, we saw progress. And you didn't have to just choose one or the other. Like as I was building a career, there's no reason why you can't build a healthy marriage. And as we're starting the business, there's no reason why we can't continue to strengthen our marriage at the same time. Sometimes we think we have to put certain things off in order to focus and build something else in another area of life. But the reality is that's not true. You can build everything together. It just takes a lot more intention in doing it, and also understanding what's important in the moment. Because and knowing that you don't have to spend a lot of time in any of those areas to build it well. So, for example, we talked a lot about the business, that you don't have to continue to put more and more hours into it to build a healthier business. We just have to be more productive, get better outputs, get more revenue and more profits with the existing clientele and leads that you already have, right? That you don't have to put more time into it to make it build. And on the flip side, in the marriage, it's not so much that you have to spend, an extra 2-3 hours a day with your spouse and your kids to build a healthier marriage, build a healthier family. But it's the time that you do have, make it count.
Mm-hmm. Well, what comes to mind for me is when we got on a budget, which you were so excited about.
Yeah.
We came up with a budget and we figured out, where we wanted all of our money to go ahead of time. And we really struggle with entertainment because we like to have fun, and that could be endless. And so we came up with a number, and I tend to be more of the saver. You tend to be more the spender, which you've gotten a lot better, I have to say, over the years. And you'd come with me with all these ideas and things you want to do. And of course, I want to do them all. And so I would say, okay.
How much is it going to cost? Is it on the budget?
Well, and I don't want to be the one saying no all the time. That's no fun. And I don't want to be the police monitor of the entertainment
fun
budget.
Monitor.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would say,
fun police.
Well, is it in the budget? Because I probably didn't know where we were at in the budget. Like at that time, I wasn't looking at it, probably every day. So you would go in the budget and you would see if it was in the budget, if we had the money to do it or not. And that's how we made the decision. So I didn't have to say anything besides, is it in the budget? A lot of times you would look ahead of time, and that would answer the question right there, which made more peace between the two of us because I wasn't having to say no and be the fun monitor. And we came up with the number together, and you were okay with that. You would look at that and think, okay, well, maybe we'll do it next month, or yes, we can do it. And that made us closer, I think. And it also helped us be intentional about our goals and where we were wanting our money to go, where we were wanting to save for, because maybe there was something coming up that I really wanted to do, or we did last year a dream trip. So that meant we got to start saving like before a couple years before so that we have the money and the means to do it. And that keeps me motivated.
Yeah. And so what that, obviously finances is one of the number one hot topic item in any marriage. So getting on the same page financially is huge. And of course, getting on the budget. And I had to adjust my mindset too, because I wanted to have fun, kind of want to live in the moment. I want to have fun now, not having to delay gratification, but understanding not just about what it's going to take to have fun, but also knowing that big picture wise, we did need to save and invest for the future, right? We didn't want to be broke when we retired, we got to that retirement age when you have to, slow down for a variety of reasons. We wanted to build wealth. We wanted to be able to, obviously pass down generational wealth generations, but also be able to save for another house or whatever. There's also big things that you're planning for later, and that's always going to take extra money, which means you're going to have to save and invest and all that stuff. So, understanding, once you kind of create a budget, then we start to have to make some different choices, or at least I did. Like a lot of things like what I wasn't going to spend on now, like cutting out the NFL package at the time, if in those direct TV days, discontinuing the NFL package, even direct TV itself. And we just had pared down a lot of different expenses, especially around entertainment, and to be able to put more money into, make the bigger trips, right? Instead of a bunch of little trips or just day trips or whatever, I'll also be able to save for those bigger trips, but then also just saving and investing for the future. And I think, a prime example is, because I didn't have a lot of money growing up. My family didn't have a lot of money growing up. So I kind of learned trial and error, just, as far as investing. I didn't know anything about that. But I just remember my first job out of college was at Coca-Cola. So I put 3% of my income into the 401k. That was the first time I heard about a retirement plan, a 401k. They had a company match, a dollar for dollar for the first 6% of your income that you put in. So I dipped my toe in by putting in 3% because I'm thinking, my mentality was I want to spend and enjoy myself. So, putting 3% of my income and, was a big leap. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to live? How am I going to have fun? But that was the first phase. And then eventually I got a little bit smarter and said, hey, the company's matching every dollar that I put in for the first 6% of my income I put in. So am I not throwing money away if I don't at least put in 6%? Right? Because that's free money. I mean, you're getting 100% return on your investment the minute you invest that money. So, I just started saying, just math. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm totally giving money away. I mean, I'm getting rid of 100% return. I'm giving that away. So then I upped my savings to 6% of my income. And then throughout the years, instead of, whatever got a raise and all that, instead of just upping our lifestyle, right, of doing more, having more fun, right, with more money, portion of that, that raise, a portion of it would go towards, entertainment, but a bigger portion of it would go towards investing into our retirement. And so instead of, like, a lot of people just upgrade their living when they get a raise or a bonus, intentional about putting that money into our retirement. So eventually it got to a point we worked our way up to putting in 17% of our income into our 401k, which is the max, what you can do in a 401k. So I just maxed it out. So it went from 0 to 3% to eventually just 17%, right? Which forced us to make different choices of what we want to do with our money. And then eventually we got real estate and other mutual funds and all that stuff. But all that to say is, sometimes we think, especially when it comes to wealth, that once we hit a certain milestone in income or revenue in our business, then we can start investing. Then we can start really, because we have a mentality of we need to put a lot of money in now to get a lot of money. But the reality is you just need to be consistent in what you do. So it was really just about being intentional about building wealth and having a different mindset and making different choices. And so the sacrifices that were made were just about, the immediate, getting rid of it, not that kind of minimizing that immediate gratification, that the need to do it now. So that's a great example of being intentional, that looking at your finances and saying, okay, what's the big goal financially for you? And don't wait to get to a certain level of financial achievement to then start to, save and invest for the future and all that. But start now and just like I did, just start small and just build and get more of the investing mindset and getting a return on your dollars as opposed to just consuming it and spending it away and just throwing it down the toilet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great, I didn't know you were going to bring that up, but that's a great example of the intentionality, being intentional around, in this case, building.
Well, I think you got to have the vision first, sit down with your family, with your spouse, come up with the vision. What do you want your life to look like? Because, we started coming to visiting the lake here in Lake Norman, 7 years ago?
6 years ago.
6 years ago. We had never envisioned us ever moving. But when we came here, we loved the lake. And so I remember you saying to me, which I was really surprised, like, oh, I could live here. And I'm like, I've always loved the water. I'm like, oh, this is great. And so we just kept coming and visiting it here. And I think if we weren't intentional about coming to visit, checking out the area, I don't think we would have ever moved here.
That's a great example of being intentional, right? It's like, okay, let's go visit. And we it was almost like once we kind of set a vision of, hey, it'd be nice to visit more, before we actually make the move. Because, we were only here once and didn't really get to know the area. So the yearly visits basically allowed us to really get to know the area a little bit more. But what happened was like we were, for one reason or another, we were in the area to speak. It was usually business related. And so it wasn't just about, hopping on a plane and coming out to visit, but it was actually connected to like a business area. So it's almost like once we set our mind to it and kind of put the vision out, say, hey, we could probably live here. Then it was almost like creating opportunities to have a reason just to come out besides just, hopping on a plane and come out. But it's almost all of a sudden like doors were opening up to come out and visit for one reason or another. And then, last year, of course, that was more, and if you listen to our podcast for the last couple episodes, we decided last March in 2025 to get an Airbnb on the lake and just spend a month out here. And so we did that. So all our steps have been very intentional. We didn't just jump right in, though, of course, but it was about making progress.
Yeah, I'd say there are baby steps we took along because this was a huge move for us and not something we were going to just do overnight because that's not our risk tolerance. So we were just intentional. Like you said, we came out for the month of March just to see what it was like. Get to know the area a little bit better. I mean, moving in itself is huge. You got to get packers. You got to find a place to go. So, you have to be intentional about all those little steps. Otherwise, I'm going to be a crazy person with my head cut off, chicken with their head cut off. And you're going to be like overwhelmed because it's so much going on.
Yeah. So that's part of, we talked about that a couple episodes back about really living now. Don't put off till later what we can intentionally take steps to move forward. It's not just about, sometimes when you talk about living our best life now, we're thinking about, hey, let's, like if we had the vision of living on a lake or whatever your retirement, quote unquote, retirement vision might be, it's not like we do that right now, but it's how do we take steps towards that? But in the process, kind of emulate what you want to do, what your best life is going to look like. So even though 5 years ago or 6 years ago, we weren't living on the lake, but we did emulate it by visiting it. So even in small doses, we were living, and it's almost like it's like a practice run in a sense, right? You get used to living that way, which is in this case, living on the water. And it's almost like, and in each successive step forward, the vision becomes clearer, it becomes stronger, the desire becomes stronger, and also the fear of making the big move gets less. I think in 2021, when we first found this place, I think if I would have said, hey, let's move the next year, that would have been a big deal.
That would have been a lot because there's something to be said about coming to visit here because then you get familiar with the surroundings and the area and the people. And it's not like it's a total foreign thing that you've never been there before. And then you get there and you're like, I didn't realize it's such a small city or how much traffic there was, things like that.
And the other things, you have to be very intentional about when is regards to just connecting as husband and wife, to be regular on those date nights, to take trips, take vacations, all that kind of stuff. That is such a challenge to do that on a regular basis for a lot of married entrepreneurs because we're so busy. Mm-hmm. And that's the excuse, right? We're just busy. And the reality is, if you don't make the time to do it now, you're not going to do it even when you have a lot of money and your business is basically self-running and you have more freedom. Because I know a lot of business owners, even if they have a great team, they've got C-suite executives, all that kind of stuff. They have everything in place in which they can pull back a little bit more, enjoy a little bit more freedom. They still don't because they don't know how to. and they don't know how to say no. Their whole identity is tied up into the business that they don't know how to go back, to kind of pull back a little bit. And so the reality is, again, just from observation, from other, business owners we've known, some that have been on our podcasts, all that kind of stuff, we just know if you don't do it now, if you don't practice doing those things now, like connecting with your spouse and taking the date nights, doing the vacations, all of that, if you don't do those things now, you're not going to do it later, even when you're in a better financial situation.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with money.
Yeah, like this.
Because there's all kinds, there's all kinds of things, like free things out there. Concerts in the park, you could do a picnic, go to the beach. I mean, there's tons of free things that you can do out there that aren't going to cost money.
Yeah, enjoying yourself, connecting as husband and wife, as a family, doesn't have to cost any money. You're right. So you just do what your budget allows you to do. But the reality is, connecting as husband and wife, connecting as a family is not about the money. It's not about what you do. It's just the intention about connecting. That's it. And, it's simple as, remember, one of our podcast guests a while back, they're so busy and they had young kids. They, didn't have access to a good babysitter and all that stuff. So date nights were hard to do. So the kids were just old enough where they could trust them for about an hour. And so they asked the kids, hey, can you give mommy and daddy 1 hour of peace? And they ordered takeout, got in the car, pulled out of the driveway or pulled out of the garage to park in the driveway, turned on the radio and parked and had a dinner out.
And their date night.
And their date night. And that's
kids were inside. I think they were watching a movie or something.
Yeah. So, you have to be creative, but, all an example of, it's really just about the connection, the time to connect, intentional time to connect, than it is about what you do and how much you spend.
My girlfriend would feed her kids early, put them to bed, and then her and her husband would have dinner afterwards, after the kids were in bed and had their dinner.
Yeah. So even for us, we just have to put on the calendar. I mean, we've got our concerts in the park all booked out for the summer. Kay Lee went on the calendar. Right when we got here to Davidson, went on the calendar, and Davidson had a summer concert series, and it's free. And so put those on the calendar. Those are locked in. Now, we don't go to all of them, but at least it's there. So we know, hey, what's to do this weekend? So we don't have to guess. So if all else fails, you go to the concert. But then also there's some music, like tomorrow's 90s theme. So I'm like, hey, let's do that. And then we was Beach Boys, was it? Jimmy Buffett was a couple of weeks ago, the Jimmy Buffett cover band. So, that was fun. So anyways.
Well, the nice thing about that too is I try and put it on the calendar, like when it first comes out, their calendar of the concerts in the park. So it's already up before probably the beginning of summer, if not before that. So then if there's friends that we want to meet up with or hang out with, and they're like, let's get together. What do you want to do? I don't know. And I'm like, oh, there's a concert. You want to go? And we've done that. We're like, you want to go to this concert? And they're like, oh yeah, we want to go.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all that, like I said, it's all about just being intentional and just creating momentum and doing and making progress on the things that you want to do that will lead to a better life, a better business. And it's not about trying to accomplish all those things at one time, but it's just about taking those baby steps.
Well, and I think it's got to start with you getting together with your spouse and looking at what your vision is. And then that will give you a direction of where to go next.
Yeah, that was episode 251 is really about set the vision. It's like, what does our best life look like? Not just in the future, but what would I love for it to look like even now? And then question everything. How can we make this happen? And don't have excuses why you can't do it. Look for the ways to do it and just make progress, right? Like I said, we didn't get, even for us, we're in a kind of that routine of being able to be intentional about looking for those opportunities to live a great life, to enjoy the process. Like even, we're going to speak in Orlando and then Philadelphia here coming up. And so instead of flying, we're going to drive because it's only an 8-hour drive. If you went all the way through, it's an 8-hour drive to either Orlando or Philadelphia. And so we figure, let's stop, on those trips, let's just stop somewhere.
Road trip, honey.
Enjoy it. Yeah, because instead of flying, and part of us moving out here was to be able to experience the East Coast because we really haven't explored the East Coast. And so taking those opportunities. And I can take my pup. Yeah. So it's really about taking those opportunities. Instead of doing your normal routine, is let's disrupt the routine a little bit and let's just do something a little bit different that would allow you to be able to enjoy life a little bit more now.
And make some friends along the way.
Yeah. So if this is really touched you, got some nuggets out of this, or at least one, go ahead and share this episode with another married entrepreneur that needs to hear this. And until next week, God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.